The acrid stench of smoke still clung to my hair when she strutted into my courtroom like she owned it. Imagine watching your home reduced to ashes, only to face the arsonist days later. She thought she'd won, but she'd just handed me the chance to destroy her legally. The night my house burned, I stood barefoot in the street, clutching nothing but Harold's old bathrobe around me. Flames licked the sky, swallowing 28 years of memories in minutes. The kitchen where we planned retirement. The roses he planted each spring. The sanctuary that kept me tethered to him after cancer stole him away. Neighbors gathered, silent, some crying. I could barely breathe, the smoke choking more than just my lungs. It felt like losing Harold all over again. Like someone had reached into my chest and ripped away the last piece of him I had left. And then the investigators whispered what I already suspected. The fire wasn't an accident. Someone had opened my back gate. Accelerants were found near the foundation. This was deliberate. The morning sun rose over blackened rubble, but all I saw was rage. I promised Harold that no one would ever erase him. Whoever did this had no idea the storm they'd unleashed. A week later, I walked into my courtroom prepared for another ordinary docket, and froze. Because sitting in the defendant's chair, smirking like she was auditioning for a villain's role, was the woman responsible for my devastation. My name is Judge Miriam Blackwood. For 20 years, I've worn these black robes, handed down sentences, and kept my emotions locked tighter than any jail cell. But I wasn't just a judge that night. I was a widow, a woman whose last connection to her husband had gone up in flames. Harold and I built that house together. A 1940s craftsman home with creaky stairs, stubborn windows, and a garden that bloomed with more love than flowers. Losing him to cancer shattered me. The house became my lifeline, my museum of memories. And now someone had decided to erase it from existence. But here's what they didn't know. Grief had already stripped away my fear. I had nothing left to lose. And when you take everything from a federal judge, all you've done is give her permission to go nuclear with the law as her weapon. Her name was Bryn Ashworth Sterling, though everyone in Pinewood Estates knew her by another title. The HOA president from hell. Picture every cliché about an entitled suburban tyrant and then multiply it by 10. Silver Tesla, designer yoga pants, clutching a $20 smoothie while dictating how everyone else should live. She'd moved in 2 years earlier with her contractor husband, immediately declaring the neighborhood beneath her standards. Out came the violation notices, the pink tape measure, the smug speeches about property values. She wasn't improving Pinewood. She was colonizing it. My first encounter came as I installed Harold's memorial fence. She measured it with her tape, pursed her lips, and declared it illegal, though the regulation she cited didn't exist. I knew then this wasn't about fences. It was about control. And then I remembered where I'd seen her last. Sterling Premium Builders, her husband's company, in my courtroom, trying to scam an elderly veteran. I crushed their scheme. Now she wanted revenge. What I didn't know was that this Karen wasn't just petty. She was dangerous. And burning down my house was only the beginning of her war. Before the fire, her campaign had already started. Letters filled my mailbox. Non-regulation mailbox color, excessive bird feeding, unauthorized memorial stone. Each notice came with hundreds of dollars in fines. Each was built on rules that didn't exist. She wasn't just targeting me. My neighbor Walt told me about the Rodriguez family, forced to remove a Virgin of Guadalupe statue from their yard. A single mom fined for chalk drawings her kids made on their driveway. An elderly couple bullied over a wheelchair ramp. This wasn't HOA enforcement, it was persecution. A systematic purge of anyone who didn't fit her pristine suburban fantasy. But Bryn made one fatal mistake. She thought I'd crumble under grief and intimidation. She didn't realize she was teaching me her playbook. Every fraudulent letter, every false claim was evidence. And I was documenting everything with the precision of a surgeon preparing for the kill. Still, I underestimated how far she'd go. Because one morning, while I sentenced drunk drivers downtown, Bryn trespassed into my backyard with her entourage, cameras rolling, measuring tape snapping, setting the stage for something far darker than petty fines. She wasn't satisfied with harassment. She wanted destruction. It started with the gate. My cameras caught her leaving it open, smirking as she walked away. An hour later, her landscapers stormed in with industrial leaf blowers, chasing my tabby cat, Gavel, the last living gift from Harold. They ran him until he collapsed into a storm drain with broken ribs. When I found him at the vet's, tubes in his tiny body, rage replaced my grief. She hadn't just destroyed my home. She tried to erase my family. Then came the fire. Accelerants planted. Fake violations submitted. And finally, in the dead of night, my sanctuary erupted into flames. It was arson disguised as negligence, insurance fraud with a side of attempted murder. But here's the thing about being a judge. I know how criminals think. She assumed she'd scare me into silence. Instead, she just guaranteed that I'd make it my mission to bury her under every law book in the country. When I stood in the ashes of Harold's roses, I didn't see loss anymore. I saw evidence. And evidence is all I've ever needed to destroy people like Bryn Ashworth Sterling. I wasn't alone in this fight. Walt, my neighbor, came forward with testimony about her targeting. Sarah, a fearless journalist, aired footage of her trespassing. And then there was Pat, retired FBI cardigan-wearing grandmother, and the last person Bryn wanted investigating her finances. Pat uncovered everything. Multiple identities across states. Millions stolen from HOAs. Fake insurance claims filed before fires mysteriously erupted. Bryn wasn't just a Karen. She was a professional predator. And the community rallied. Families she'd driven out returned to testify. Elderly residents brought boxes of fraudulent fines. Even our postman had documented her harassment. Piece by piece, we assembled a case that transformed from neighborhood feud to federal crime spree. And here's the kicker. Bryn had already filed an insurance claim on her own house for fire spread damages, 47 minutes before mine even burned. That wasn't negligence. That was premeditated arson. By the time federal agents arrived, they didn't see an HOA president. They saw a RICO case waiting to be written. And when Bryn strutted into my courtroom the next week, she didn't just face me. She faced the entire weight of federal justice. She arrived in orange jumpsuit, shackled but smirking. The arrogance of someone who'd never been told no. She thought she could talk her way out, blame me, spin the story as judicial overreach, but the prosecutors came armed. Charges rolled off their tongues like thunder. Arson, attempted murder, insurance fraud, identity theft, money laundering, RICO conspiracy. Life sentences stacked like bricks. Neighbors testified, voices trembling but resolute. A single mom describing fines for chalk drawings. An elderly veteran forced from his home. Tears streamed down faces as they relived their torment. And the jury listened, stone-faced, unforgiving. Then Bryn made her final mistake. She stood, eyes locked on me, and spat. "This is a vendetta. You're abusing your power." The courtroom fell silent. And then the judge presiding, my colleague, since I recused myself, delivered the words that sealed her fate. "You didn't just target a widow. You targeted an entire community. And now the law will target you." The gavel struck. The room erupted. And Bryn's smirk finally cracked. Bryn Sterling, real name Sandra Mackenzie, received life without parole. Her husband got 25 years. Their assets were seized and redistributed to victims across 4 states. Pinewood Estates was reborn. Walt became HOA president, implementing transparency and fairness. My home was rebuilt. Roses replanted. Gavel healed. Harold's memory lived on, stronger than fire. And for the first time since the flames, I breathed freely again. So here's my message to you. If you're facing an HOA nightmare, document everything. Bullies only win when we stay silent. My horror story became a blueprint for justice, and yours can too. Drop a comment and tell me, what's the worst HOA story you've heard? You're not alone in this fight. And make sure you're subscribed, because next week, I'll tell you how a corrupt tax assessor tried to steal an entire neighborhood, and how we took him down with federal charges so severe, even his lawyers begged for mercy. Justice, my friends, is always worth the wait.